was just that somebody would see it, but now that everything that's happened has happened to it, yeah, it's insane. It's a bit of a confluence of events, the first of which was I read Mark and J. Duplass's book, Like Brothers, which was sort of very inspiring. No more meetings, just get up and shoot something, make something. I'm a commercial director. I've wanted to write a small, budget-friendly, let's call it, interesting film that plays to my strengths as a sort of a comic character, sketchy sort of actor, and also was really excited about doing a two-hander with an actress with a role that sort of showed a myriad of talents while not sexualizing the character as well. So my ignition and inspiration writing the script happened sort of at the hilt of the Me Too movement at the very sort of beginning, having a lot of conversations with female friends of mine who were sort of gradually opening up about their experiences. So I was just sort of like, how can I make a rewatchable film that slightly nods to the anthologies, horror anthologies that I loved as a kid, but also had a bit of a message. And I love how squirmy my like contemporary male friends get when I talk about, yeah, it sort of hones in on that icky feeling, you know, when dudes feel emasculated by a talented, sort of more intelligent, witty woman. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm that woman.
Yeah.
I'm that emasculating, smart lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do. We both play writers, and we meet up on a dark and stormy night and start to tell stories to each other and see who can outstory each other. And I mean, clearly I win, but no spoilers there. No, but you know, character-wise, we just kind of showed up and just sort of felt it out. You know, yeah. It was quite a thrill to just kind of figure out that relationship. Josh is a very, very funny. Go to his Instagram. I would not normally say that sentence ever in life, but go to Josh Rubin's Instagram because he's one of the funniest people I've ever seen on that site. Like, I would say that like he's maybe top 5 follows. Diane Keaton, Josh Rubin, IndieWire, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Adobe. But he's very funny. He does a lot of characters, and this movie really shows that off and allows him to do characters. It's not something I do, and part of what I was so excited about is the opportunity and the trust that he gave me to do all these different characters that I'm not, you know, I'm not on SNL. I'm not someone who does that. So to try to keep up with him was really fun. Rehearsal, I mean, we read through the script once, and I think for anyone who sees the film, you'll kind of get it right away. I mean, I'm borrowing from Aya's phrasing, but we lived in a very misogynistic, racist world and society, and this is not a hard role for, I think, anyone to show up to and do. The most interesting thing, I guess you could say, from my end, approaching it as an actor and as a director, sort of going like, I know what this feeling is. I've recognized it in myself when a female counterpart or colleague is just ahead enough where I, with my privileged self, I feel like, but I should be, and examining that and why that is, and you know, the whether violent or just tense repercussions of that gender dynamic has been really, really fascinating. And then to put that in the framework of a hopefully rewatchable kind of, you know, almost experimental sort of horror comedy has been really, really cool. Yeah. Anything I can do to sort of drive home like a chilling through line, I guess you could say, best I could, while also like, again, you know, utilizing the framework of experimental filmmaking. You know, Yorgos Lanthimos is a big inspiration to me, and sort of drive home, like, you know, or sort of utilize some of those odd longer takes, but also with jump scares. I don't think, inequity-wise, I don't think there was, I don't think I really thought of it. I think it was just sort of like, I know I want this to be a genre movie. I know I want it, how it, you know, I want it to sound. Sure, my amazing composers come into play, you know, for it to have that sort of versatile and also, you know, maybe Joseph Bashara themed or feeling sort of score that's very, I don't think the word is brash, but just like unsettling.
It plays a really interesting back and forth between comedy and horror. Comedy is it kind of requires, for the composer, requires you to really nail what you don't play funny music under this. You play the music that you would want to hear under these scenes, or what you've come to expect. And so we listened to a lot of great stuff and talked about it. And I think in the end, though it's sort of, the references kind of fell away, and it's genre, and it's also, I feel like, a little bit fresh and new feeling.
And Phil, if we were to give out a fashion prize, I think you would win it today, because this is the greatest.
I didn't want to upstage everybody today, but
I will.
I will. I mean,
Yeah, it looks like the guy. Looks like the bridesmaid who comes dressed in a better dress than the bride.
I had one sweater. I really had.
This is my one sweater.
I'm like.
Don't you think this should happen more often? I mean, it's so crazy. I feel like the rest of the world doesn't understand how many people make films. Like, a film does not just, like, get birthed out of the canal of the director. There's so many people.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're so used to being in the position as composers, as being the very last people to get involved, creatively, and it's like, it's a real honor to be able to be recognized as being part of the movie, which I know it's not common.
That's a classic. That relationship between a director and a composer, it's pretty much old Hollywood. You just don't get that as much anymore. You don't get that Alfred Hitchcock, Bernard Herrmann relationship anymore. And Josh brought us in, I think, super early. I think to start with that pop song that's a part of it, not to give away anything, but to be brought into something so early, I think it's such a great thing for us in our position to kind of feel this thing as it moves along, and it helped I think shape the music a lot.
It's just I've always said that from the get-go, beyond the talent of the cast, with Aya and Chris Redd and Becky Drysdale, and sure, throw me in there. Beyond that, this is a sound designer's movie and a composer's movie for sure. And these guys and my sound designers at Great City Post, who work with Irony Point, our production company, they blew it absolutely out of the water, and you'll be able to see that. It's a huge part of why this little movie feels so big. Is both the music and the sound design bring the whole thing together, and that's what makes it, hopefully what makes it, the kind of film that you want to put back on, come around Halloween, or really anytime you want to, see some misogynistic characters,
Well, what was it specifically about Chris and Phil that you just knew that they had the right sound that you were looking for?
These guys this is the sound behind Bob's Burgers, and as hysterical and experimental and moving and nuanced as that show is, they're also musicians at heart. I mean, I'm going to Chris's show on February 29th at the Colony in Woodstock. You guys gonna come? These guys, they're legitimate musicians. There's just versatility there, and also just they wear their collaborative spirit on their sleeve. I mean, it's the same thing with Aya and with Chris and with anybody that I think any of us want to work with.
I think a good director is a good collaborator. At least that's who I want to work with these days. Like, I'm not as interested in this myth of the auteur because it doesn't appeal to me. Then what am I doing? Yeah. I love the idea of we all work together on something. Everyone brings the best parts of themselves forward, and that's what makes a film.
Josh would say, for this specific scene, I want this feeling, and it's a challenge for us. Is how can we get that feeling? And it was, sometimes it was a lot of back and forth, like little snippets, like, what about this? And then, he would say immediately.
The collaboration is great.
I'm not sure, but then it would be like, okay, now, let's think about it and get into it. And that's the most exciting part of the whole thing. It's just like, we feel like that we're really part of it, and I hope it shows on
I mean, I also think sound really can save performance sometimes. I mean, gosh, you'll see something, I could be doing this, but you have intense music under, and suddenly you're reading so much into my face because you have a soundscape that brings you into my head and into my eyes, even if I'm not doing anything. And so I think it's a huge part of movie making and what
a lot
makes
of
it
times, Josh would say, like, during a film.
fix Aya's performance. Yeah.
Yeah, and he would, yeah.
I'm kidding.
He would just say, no. He would touch on something that we wouldn't even think about, something about the sound, and then it would make us think differently about the music and how the composition would work with the sound design and what's going on camera. So it was really exciting collaboration.